back to this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Brody, and today I will be joined by a very special guest and good friend of mine, Adam Kinross from KINNY Games, Madden expert, video game expert. Don't make sure you check out his channel. But before we begin, today we'll be discussing the second week of OTAs so far from the Chicago Bears, especially the quarterback situation from both Andy Dalton and Justin Fields. Both are impressing coaches. You don't want to miss this one. And before we begin, a word from our sponsor, Higher Level Camps. 27 years in counting, Higher Level Camps is the longest running boys and girls AAU basketball program in Wisconsin. Higher Level Camps was established in 1995 by their founder and retired NBA player Cheryl Moore. Higher Level Camps has grown into 3 locations, the greater Fond du Lac area, Milwaukee, and Eau Claire counties in Wisconsin. For more information, please visit higherlevelcamps.com and say Just Another Year sent you. We love Cheryl, great lady, biggest fan of ours, but she is a Packers fan, but we still love her. Now, let's jump into it. And now our podcast, Adam Kinross from KINNY Games, Madden expert, good friend of mine, college roommate. Adam, thank you very much for joining the show today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, man. I'm really happy to be here.
So before we begin, tell us a little bit about KINNY Games, exactly what you do before we jump into OTAs.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm pretty much a Madden content creator. I post videos of Madden Ultimate Team. And just the game that we all know and love. We love to watch football on Sundays. I love to play and control that in Madden. And so a lot of people just play the game casually. I love to play it a little bit more so than that and post pretty much daily content on YouTube about the game. And I'm also an avid Bears fan. So that's why I'm super happy to be here to talk about this today. You can find me on Twitter. I'll tweet about both the Bears, Madden, and all other Chicago sports. But also on YouTube, just searching KINNY, and I should pop up there.
Yeah, and make sure you look under KINNY's Adam's name. It'll have his exact handle. So make sure you go give him a follow and check him out. And fun story about Adam is that he had the Xbox in our fraternity room, and he had all the Madden games. I didn't have anything because he already had it there. And I always asked him, hey, Adam, can I use your Xbox? And the one time I didn't ask, Adam actually came home unannounced. And that's, I think, where I really learned his love for Madden. So
I'm very protective over my team. So if someone touches my console, I get very protective over it. So you spent a lot of time, and I was like, Nick, hey, bro, we had a deal. All you had to do was shoot me a text. It's all good. But literally the one time is when I came home unannounced.
Yeah, and I don't think you talked to me for like 2 days. So
I don't know if it was that extreme, but something close.
But yeah, I mean, going into like, all this that's going on right now in the controlling of things, a lot of things have changed for the Bears. Obviously, a lot of people have seen that picture of Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles last year in the quarterback competition. And then you see the Red Rifle and Andy Dalton and Justin Fields. Just the picture was a completely different vibe for the Bears. And there's been a lot of good news coming out of this competition. It's not even a competition. The offense as a whole in the quarterback depth chart. Nick Foles has accepted the fact that he is a third string quarterback. He doesn't care. He's making $9.5 million this year to be a third string quarterback in the NFL. And then Justin Fields is QB2, has accepted that role. And Andy Dalton right now is QB1. So, Adam, I don't know if you've had a chance to watch the 1920 videos on YouTube yet, or you've seen some of the clips, but coming from your perspective before we jump into things that Nagy's been saying, in a Madden perspective, has anything been released yet on Justin Fields and Andy Dalton? Like, who would you rather be starting right now for the Chicago Bears?
Well, if we're just talking in terms of Madden, 1000% Justin Fields. Every year when the draft comes up, they'll release new draft players in the Ultimate Team mode. So that kind of gives you a chance to like get your feet wet and play with the players. Granted, none of the stats or attributes are accurate to what they will be next year because it's really late game. So they make them like really juiced players and really good players. But Justin Fields is fun. Honestly, I'm not going to lie, at least from a Madden perspective. When we got rid of Mitch, who was a decent Madden quarterback, he's fast. He can run out of the pocket. He can scramble. And in Madden, you can actually play with him how Nagy should have played with him in real life and actually get him outside of the pocket and giving him a chance to do what he did best. But I'm more excited to play with Justin Fields, that's for sure, even if his ratings are going to be a little bit lower because they always do the rookies just a little bit dirty.
Yeah, I think he was like, a 78 or something like that. It wasn't anything crazy, but for a rookie quarterback, like that's better than some of the Bears quarterbacks in the last decade before even stepping onto a football field. So I agree to that from a Madden standpoint, but from a fan standpoint, Are you a fan of Andy Dalton coming to Chicago? I know at first you might not have been, but, from what we've been hearing, through the Twitter world of things, the Bears postings, like, are you a fan of Andy Dalton starting week 1?
Yes and no. I would say I'm not necessarily a fan of Andy Dalton, but I'm also not a hater of Andy Dalton. I think, before they knew they had even a prayer of getting Fields or a good quarterback this draft, they had to do something to hedge. Foles clearly wasn't it. Trubisky was gone. Like, they were going to sign someone. I was not a fan, and I was pretty vocal about the fact that we signed Andy Dalton because it just seemed like there was so much on the line heading into this offseason, and we had to make some moves. Like, such a great defense. It's been wasting away for the last 3 years. Like, what are we going to do about it? And it's like QB1, Andy Dalton. And I'm just like, this is not what I wanted to see as a Bears fan. We love our football in Chicago. And it's just, it drove me nuts to see that as like, here, Bears fans, your hopes were so high. And here's what we're feeding you is Andy Dalton. Now, I'm not necessarily a hater of him. I mean, just from what I've seen, like, he's the only quarterback to lead the Bengals to 5 consecutive playoff berths. And he's one of 5 quarterbacks to lead his team to playoffs in each of his first 5 seasons. Granted, he's 33 now. He's a little bit older. He's 218 to 126 touchdown interception ratio and 87.5 career passer rate. He's not a terrible quarterback. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say Andy Dalton sucks. We're screwed. He's worse than Mitch. He's worse than Foles, whatever it is. He's not awful. I kind of discount, last year because the Cowboys kind of quit as soon as Dak went down. So you kind of got to get that out of your head. But just like looking at what he did with a terrible Bengals team, a team that wasn't consistently coached, he was still a young quarterback at the time. He has talent and he has ability. And now he's 33 years old. He's been in the league for a bit. He's been around. He's seen a lot of different defenses. He's played against a lot of different teams. And so I think he can bring some valuable experience. Again, I'm not super pumped that he's our day one quarterback, but I also don't know how happy I would be about Justin Fields starting day one. I don't really think we have a great true week 1 starter because Andy Dalton's not a sexy option, and Justin Fields, I just think it's really soon. And I love that he's a competitor and everything, but yeah, the short answer to your question is yes and no. I'm not a Dalton hater, but the long answer is we're just going to have to, wait and see how he does.
So he was promised the week 1 role, and he's taking that seriously. So like topic number 1 starting point that we're hitting on is that he's impressing Matt Nagy and the coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball. He's really taking that leadership role seriously in Chicago. Like you said, but Justin Fields, they were like, there's such a little chance that we're going to get a guy like him. Let's just go all in on Andy. And that's how Andy's been since day one. He knows that, Bears fans were pissed about it at first. No one was like, oh my God, the savior of Andy Dalton is here. No one was like that. But he definitely is a better overall quarterback than Mitch in plenty aspects. I mean, like you said, the stats don't lie. He's a good game manager. Mitch wasn't. He can throw the deep ball better than Mitch. That's not saying much, but Matt Nagy loves what he's seeing. And it's kind of like an Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes kind of deal again when Nagy was in Kansas City, a veteran quarterback who was good, could take your team to the playoffs, but how deep in the playoffs could you go was never really proven with Alex Smith. And that's kind of like Andy Dalton again. But Matt Nagy said earlier this week, over the weekend, I love what Dalton's doing because he's comfortable enough to give constructive criticism to his teammates, making them better. So he's not being a jerk to them. He's not like getting in their face saying, like, acting like he's been there forever, but he's taking on that role that he's one of the older guys in this offense, and he's going to help build the younger guys on the team. And everyone seems to be handling it very well. David Montgomery came out and said, like, Andy's a good leader and Fields is also a good leader. And with that also, it doesn't seem like Fields is like upset that he is week 2 quarterback. You see in video, you see in pictures that him and Dalton are talking very well. Dalton's given him a lot of criticism. I mean, constructive criticism, but also like it's smiling, like preparing him to be an NFL star. And I think Dalton knows that. And that's kind of like the vibe that a lot of players are giving out of OTAs so far. And, I totally agree with you. Fields should not be a week 1 starter. I think that, unless Dalton gets hurt, that's the only reason why Fields should be a week 1 starter. Or if, Dalton's bad for like 3 games in a row, then throw Fields out there, maybe. But, as from a Bears fan perspective, we need to do this thing right. Like, that's just for sure. You and I have never seen a legitimate quarterback. The most legitimate quarterback we've had is smoking Jay Cutler. And, I'm a big
What about
fan
Sexy
of them.
Rexy? Come on, let us to a Super Bowl loss.
I listen, 23-20 with Thomas Jones as your running back. There's no excuses to be that bad. And a defense like 2006's, I don't know. There's just like a different vibe as a Bears fan this year in the quarterback perspective, even though Fields probably is not even touching it week 1. So from your perspective, Adam, like, do you like what you're seeing from reports from Andy Dalton? Do you think there's other things that should be considered from the coaching staff perspective? What are you kind of like thinking in regards to the Andy Dalton, Justin Fields relationship that you've heard about?
Well, I mean, we also got to keep perspective here. One, Matt Nagy's not going to come out and say, yeah, Fields is handling it terrible. He's being kind of a dick, but also Andy Dalton's not very professional to say. Like, obviously Nagy's not going to say that, right? So he's going to come out and give, booming reports to all of them. Dalton's a professional. Fields is competitive and hungry, but he's still learning all this stuff. I'm sorry. After 4 years with Matt Nagy now, like, he's going to tell us what we want to hear as fans. And so I've never been a huge Matt Nagy fan. And honestly, like, I only buy 50% of what he says at any given time, because I think he just tells people what they want to hear because he's a professional and he knows what he has to say to get through media days. And I think Andy's a professional too. He's been in a backup role. He's been in a starting role. He understands the situation that he's in. He's not an idiot. Like, there's no way he doesn't hear any of the buzz. Like you said, he saw the reaction. And I think it says a lot to his character, the fact that he didn't, run to Twitter and say, what the hell, Chicago? Why are you guys treating me like crap? I'm here to play, So I think that says a lot to his character. It was the same thing with Mitch. I mean, Mitch, you can hate on him as a football player you want, but the guy's got character. He went through some crap while he was here, and he came out the other side as maybe not the best quarterback for Chicago, but I think people respected his character and the person that he was, which is not an easy thing to do in this city because of this wheel of quarterbacks that we've had and the frustration of Bears fans. So I do have a lot of respect for him in that sense. I want Justin Fields to be competitive, and that's what it sounds like he is. He is a true competitor. It was the same thing when Clemson absolutely tore him up, and he came back a year later, injured in the first or second quarter of that game, and he still threw for 6 touchdowns and beat him. Granted, it was a beaten up Clemson defense at that point too, but we won't get into that. My point is that Justin Fields is a true competitor, man. Like, he wants to start, but I think he's also smart enough to understand that, hey, this is the situation I'm walking into. The last thing I'd want to do is piss off the guy in front of me, piss off my head coach, or piss off fans of Chicago because I'm throwing a temper tantrum about not getting to start. So as far as the relationship goes, I mean, what Matt Nagy is telling us is kind of expected. He's not going to tell us any different. But at the same time, I think it's the right way for all of them to handle it. And I hope Fields keeps this fire, this drive that he has inside of him, wanting to be the starter. The clip about him bashing Green Bay already was something that I absolutely loved, because we haven't had that. We had Jay Cutler who would go give Aaron Rodgers a big old hug after every single time he lost to the Packers. So like that, I love smoking Jay, but that kind of stuff really pisses me off as a Bears fan. I want you to hate the Packers. And so it sounds like we've got 2 competitors, and then we've got Nick Foles, who's also kind of there. And that's good. I think that's good. Help each other out, be constructive, teach the new guy, but also Andy should be wanting to be the starter too. So, help the team first, but also be competitive in nature and keep that competitive edge.
So before we go into injury updates, just a quick disclaimer. Adam is a big Clemson fan. So just so everyone understands the passion behind, seeing Justin Fields go out and beat Clemson, though it was a beat up defense, totally understand that. But Adam is a Clemson fan. And Adam, before we move into injury updates from OTAs, do you wish that the Bears, if they even had a chance to get Trevor Lawrence, would you have been happy with that? Or do you prefer a guy like Justin Fields?
Okay, of course I prefer Trevor Lawrence.
All right, I just had to throw it out
once in a generation quarterback. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah. So did you already get his Jacksonville Jaguars jersey?
I ordered it the night of. Yep. I'm not. Right. Oh, also Travis Etienne. I'm like a de facto Jags fan now, I guess. I don't know. I love both of those guys, so I'll be happy to watch and support their careers. Obviously, I'm not a Jags fan, but it was cool to see them both go to the same team.
Yeah. So with that, just like super fast, we're going to go into injury updates, and then we're going to go into who's looking really good besides guys like Justin Fields and Andy Dalton. The only injury update that has come out of training camp is Daz Newsome's collarbone, which he will be back, or is expected to be back in time for training camp in 8 weeks. So more to come on that. Apparently he did have a successful surgery on it. So more to come on Daz Newsome. But let's move into topic number 3, Adam. Cole Kmet and David Montgomery look really damn good at OTAs. And, teammates are talking about it. There's been video about it on the 1920 on Chicago Bears YouTube. If you haven't seen it, make sure you go check it out. But most of the offensive side of the ball is showing up to OTAs. London and I kind of hit on that in the last podcast. Defense really isn't showing up besides Roquan Smith. They don't have to. Again, these are totally voluntary workouts, but most of the offense besides Allen Robinson is showing up, and they're just gelling. The offensive line is working together. James Daniels is, looking good on the field from the various videos that they've shown of the offensive line. But man, Cole Kmet and David Montgomery look super strong. They both had really good offseason. Kmet worked with Jimmy Graham out in Florida. Also went to tight end university. David Montgomery was posting TikToks, Instagrams of himself running and doing crazy jukes in hockey jerseys, like sweating in 90-degree weather wherever he was. I mean, it looks good, and that's super promising. So, Adam, I know you're a big David Montgomery fan. Looking at the hat, as you guys can see, it says "Run the damn ball." What are you trying to see out of David Montgomery next year now that he's entering, he's no longer the young guy in the league. He is 24, but now he has experience. He really proved himself in the second half. What do you looking to see from him next year?
Well, I think in his first year and even a little bit last year, he was a little bit a victim of circumstance in the sense of the play calling that is Matt Nagy and Bill Lazor, whoever you want to attribute it to. I am a huge David Montgomery fan. I think we got to start putting some respect on this man's name around the league. I think Chicago fans love him, rightfully so. 2019 to 2020, dramatic improvement, almost doubled his yardage. 2020 was 5th for yards after contact behind Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, James Robinson, and Aaron Jones. He had 590, almost double what the year prior was in 2019. This man has shown great improvement, and he's continued to get better. What I'm excited to see is people will finally start respecting him as a power back and not an elusive back. I think for 2019, it was a little confusing. 2020, it got a little bit clearer. I've always seen this man as, even though he's not a Derrick Henry sized guy, he's still going to bowl you the hell over, which is awesome to watch. That's Bear football. That's like run down your throat, the refrigerator Perry in at fullback kind of football. And as a Chicago Bears fan, that's what I love to see. And so I'd love to see him continue to surpass the yardage that he did last year. He broke 1,000 yards. I want to see him go over 1,100 yards this year. With 2 more touchdowns than last year, he had 8. I want to see him hit 10. And I want to see him not involved in the passing game, which may be kind of a wild take. He's not known for being a pass catching running back, but I think I'd love for him to truly focus on putting his head down and running through people. We have Tariq Cohen. We have Damian Williams. Let them handle the passing game. Let them handle the gadget nonsense that Nagy likes to do. And inevitably he's going to continue to do. But I just want to see David Montgomery this year put his head down and just bowl people over and do what he does best, break tackles and run through defenses, because I think the league is going to really start respecting him this year as long as he gets the credit and the opportunity that I really think he deserves. So a lot of that's up to Matt Nagy, which really stinks, but I'm very excited to see what he does this year.
So I don't know. I was a big Jordan Howard fan. And when we got rid of Howard because we were bringing in a new running back like David Montgomery, we didn't know at the time. But after we got Montgomery, did you feel more comfortable? One, were you a Howard fan? 2, were you more comfortable after? And then when David Montgomery kind of had that weird first year, were you kind of concerned about him? Or did you know him as the type of player that would bounce back and be the guy that he is today?
I didn't really like the pick. I wasn't like angry and super pissed about the fact that we picked up Monty, but I didn't really understand it. And so I did like Howard. I didn't see an issue there. I didn't think he was asking for too much money. I didn't really understand why we got rid of him. I feel like he kind of got like really unlucky in the NFL. And I don't know if it's bad luck or what. He was a great running back, and he just always got put into some kind of bad situations. So I thought he played well for the Bears. I enjoyed when he was a Bear. I didn't quite understand the Monty pick at first. I quickly started to see why as he started to perform. And 2019 was kind of a weird year for him. I think he was still coming into his own and trying to determine what kind of runner he wanted to be. Which is why a lot of people probably saw him as this like very elusive, make you miss kind of guy. But last year, like I was saying before, as he started to put his head down and really, brush people off or just run straight through them, I think he really came into his own. And so, I've started to love him a lot more. But yeah, it's I was a little confused when we got rid of Howard, and even more confused when we drafted Montgomery. But I quickly ate those words because he has been fantastic.
Yeah, and I think you're right. He is going to have a pretty big breakout year this year. But question for you, Adam, kind of going off David Montgomery. I know this is going to kind of feed into us, so I kind of want to keep the topic going. Who are you looking forward to seeing having an impact this year, and why? So I told you to give me your top three. I like your top three, but kind of like run me through your thought process on them.
Well, the first one, of course, was David Montgomery, and I've already talked on him a ton, so I won't spend more time on it. But I just want to see the Bears run the ball. At the end of the day, I don't care who is getting the ball. Just run the damn ball, please. Please, Matt Nagy. That is my plea for this year. The second player is Darnell Money Mooney. He had a fantastic rookie year, except despite the fact that he had no quarterback that could throw to him. Obviously, we're in Jalen Ramsey's head, so that week one matchup is going to be fantastic. Whether it's Dalton or Fields, someone should be able to throw a deep ball this year. And even around the league, people took note of him. They respected him. He's a great route runner, and he's also a deep threat, which is a fantastic combo. We've already got physicality in Allen Robinson, so I'm not too worried about getting another, massively physical wide receiver, which I don't think Mooney is. But I'm very excited to see what he can bring, especially with the QB that can hopefully hit him on a deep route this year. Whether that means he's going to spread the field for our quarterbacks, which helps a lot. Because when you can just shade up all day, and your quarterback can't throw it deep, it's just so hard to run an offense. And that's where you get all this gadgety crap that just doesn't work in the NFL. So him. And then my third one was Roquan Smith, because Chicago has a history of loving their linebackers, from Singletary to Urlacher to Briggs. I mean, the list goes on. Even Khalil Mack, obviously he's a linebacker, but we love our linebackers, man. And Roquan Smith, I loved watching him play at Georgia. I knew he was fast. I wasn't expecting the Bears to get him. And when they did, I knew right away that pick was going to be an amazing pick because of our 3-4, because of what we run and how we run our defense. He covers so much ground. It's so fun watching film of Roquan Smith. I'm talking about above and beyond just like watching a regular game. If you watch actual film of Roquan Smith, you can see him literally cover sideline to sideline on any given play. And as a middle linebacker who is that fast, that's in today's NFL, that's exactly what you need, right? And so I'm really excited to see him continue to progress. We picked up his 5th-year option. Now that he's not necessarily competing for a contract or competing for that 5th-year option, even though in the NFL, you're always competing for money. But at the same time, I want to see him just relax, really come into his own and lead this year. He stepped into leadership roles. He's still got Trevathan there to help him, but seeing him take on a more of a leadership role this year, I think will be really exciting. And I think he's going to do, great things. And we can list off stat after stat about his year last year. It was just phenomenal.
Yeah, he definitely got robbed for not going to the Pro Bowl last year. I mean, absolutely.
At the very minimum,
robbed.
Yeah. I mean, he was all pro, like caliber. All pro. He really was.
I don't think he didn't even get all pro. I mean, he was absolutely robbed last year, especially the season he had. And when the Bears, especially when they were struggling, I mean, he was on top of his game. And I'm really happy that you brought him up, because Roquan Smith is the only veteran that has been showing up to OTAs as so far. I mean, guys, Akeem Hicks could show up tomorrow if he really wanted to and just kind of like walk around and like bust people's chops, whatever. But Roquan Smith is the only leader. And that's kind of like showing, and London, said on the last Bears podcast, is that's showing that this is his defense now. This is him saying, guys, I love this team. I want us to do well. I want to be better. And you can always get better at something, but being better than last season, I mean, that man's going to be on a different level this year. He looks really good in OTAs. He looks loose. He had some injury issues toward the end of the season, and he just looks healthy. So I'm with you. I am very excited for Roquan Smith this year. Hopefully the defense can keep up with him. And, he's still in his early 20s. So there is a long career ahead of him for Roquan Smith. Now, I want to ask you one really quick question before we log off today. But out of the Bears offseason, no Justin Fields, no Jenkins, who was your favorite pickup for the Chicago Bears in an area of need, or overall pickup, just to improve the team?
That's tough. I don't think this was very much in an area of need. And in fact, I wasn't happy when I saw the news, but Damian Williams, I've very much come around about this addition. This is because you're excluding Justin Fields and Tevin Jenkins, because those two would have been my answers, of course. But I am fairly excited about Damian Williams. I went back and watched a little bit of film of what he was able to do in Kansas City, and I really think he complements what Tariq Cohen can do as a third down back. He's very versatile. He's a lot quicker than I remembered watching him, and I think he brings a lot of variety to the Bears backfield that I didn't think needed it. I thought we have Montgomery, we have Cohen. Why the heck are we signing another running back? But we signed him for what, $1 million? I mean, I might be wrong or incorrect on the exact figure, but I remember it being very cheap, which is what made me come around on this. Because when I saw the addition, I was like, really, another running back? What are we trying to replace Monty? Like, give him as many carries as possible. What are we doing here? But the more I watched some film, what he was able to do in Andy Reid's offense in Kansas City, I'm very impressed with him. And obviously, he's very, very well rested. He sat out all last year. So he should be very well rested, very healthy. And I think he's going to be a great, very cheap addition to our backfield to really complement the other two fantastic backs that we already have.
And he's a Super Bowl champion, and he was a Super Bowl hero. So yeah, I think absolutely. So like having that experience, you have Nick Foles, who is Super Bowl MVP. Can't forget that the Foles play, making Tom Brady lose his mind. The Philly special. And then you have another guy who has been in that big moment, who understands the importance of that big moment now. So, experience is always great, especially in a situation when the Bears have a very young offensive side of the ball. They have a lot of veterans on the defensive side of the ball, but they do have young guys as well. So I agree with you. A really great addition. Definitely one of my favorites as well, if we can't throw Justin Fields in there. But, overall, I think this Bears team has improved since last year. There's no doubt about that. And yes, they do have one of the hardest schedules in the NFL this year, but I think that they're going to it's going to go one direction. Either they're going to shock everybody or they're going to disappoint Bears fans. That's just how it's going to be. And the big factor obviously comes in if Aaron Rodgers ends up staying in Green Bay, but we'll know more about that. We'll know about that. And everyone else will know about that when it happens. It's not just like we have an insight to what's going on in Aaron Rodgers' head, but with that, that's our update of OTAs so far this week. Adam, thank you very much for joining. It's always a pleasure, as always.
Thank you so much for having me. It was just really fun to talk about the Bears. I could talk about the Bears all day, so this was really fun.
Yeah, so when training camp comes closer, Adam's definitely going to come back on. Probably Packers week will have Adam back on. Adam is actually taking his talents out to the West Coast and starting his own photography and videography company. So more to come on that. I will have his handles in there as well. If you need someone, make sure you contact Adam. But Adam, thank you very much again for joining this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. And thank you for everyone else for joining. And we will be back Wednesday with more OTA updates. Have a good one, Chicago.